What is going on, guys? ESG here, back with a new FPL video. In today's video, I'm going to be going through what a disaster Game Week 6 was and looking ahead to Game Week 7 to see how the team is lining up and what transfers I might need to make before the deadline. As always, if you do enjoy today's video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are new. And with that being said, let's get into it. So starting off by looking at the points that we did score in Game Week 6, and it's not pretty. 38 points in total for the game week. We've gone down by a million ranks, 1.1 million ranks, something like that. It's not the best, so I need a big week next week. If we look at the points breakdown, that defense was shocking. Konza conceding 2 to Ipswich. I'm going to start with that because it wasn't as much of a shock as it was. I expected him to concede, yes, but I didn't expect him to only get 1 point. I did think that he would either get an attack in return or it would only be 1 goal conceded, so he would still get 2 points. But conceding 2 goals against Ipswich, I think they were at home or I think they were away actually, so I can see why, but Villa didn't look great. They drew 2-2 in the end. A lot of their assets blanked. I know Watkins got returns and Rodgers got his goal, but other than that, the rest of the team looked pretty woeful. Whether it's because they have Bayern Munich midweek, I'm not entirely sure, but I need either a defensive transfer or a big week from my defenders next week for me to get a green arrow. Moving on to Arsenal next, 4-2 to Leicester. They were 2-0 up, and then out of nowhere, Leicester get 2 goals, and it was against the run of play, yeah, but in that second half, Leicester looked so strong, and I think Leicester were a little bit hard done by to lose 4-2 in that game. I do think that they probably did deserve a point out of it. Yes, in the first half, Arsenal were dominant, but in that second half, Leicester came out wanting to win the game or at least get a point out of it, and for them to get it back to 2-2 and then hold Arsenal off for as long as they did, I thought it was really good. Then they just conceded in stoppage time when there was so many minutes added on, so I did feel a bit sorry for Leicester, yes, but I also feel sorry for myself because I doubled up on the Arsenal defence because I thought they're against Leicester at home. Surely it's a clean sheet. And for them to concede 2 goals, that's a 1-pointer from both Raya and Gabriel. So again, that's an awful transfer in of Gabriel. However, if I'd have kept Andy Robertson, it would have also only been a 1-pointer. So it's not the worst that it could have been, but I would have liked a clean sheet from Arsenal in that game, and for them to not get it, it was very disappointing. They do have Southampton next week at home, so I can probably see a clean sheet in that game, if I'm being completely honest. So I'm not in any urgent rush to take Raya or Gabriel out. Looking at Trent next, and again, a 1-pointer, but I think Trent was very unlucky with his 1-pointer. He was stupid in the game, and in the sixth minute got himself a booking for kicking the ball away. In the rule book, it's a booking, so there's no arguments there from me. But the goal that Liverpool conceded, it was just bad defensive play. Kanate was trying to see the ball out of play, and he just misjudged it, and the Wolves player got the ball, passed it back, and it was an easy goal. So that's the only problem with defensive assets. It doesn't even take the defender that you have to mess up for a goal. If somebody else in that team messes up and the other team scores, that's the clean sheet written off. And because Kanate and Alisson to some extent messed up in that game leading to the Wolves goal, it wrote off Trent's clean sheet. So yes, Liverpool were unlucky to concede, but at the same time, they were their own worst nightmare, and they need to improve on that if they are going to keep clean sheets. Crystal Palace away next week. It's a tough game, but with how Palace have been performing, I can see a potential clean sheet in that game, if not attacking returns for Trent. So again, no rush to take Trent out. If I look at my bench really quickly, -1 from Dunk. Thankfully, I didn't start him. Conceding 4 goals to Chelsea. I don't really think anybody saw that coming, but it was just the Cole Palmer show in that game. None of the other attackers, other than Sancho maybe, didn't look too great. So I'm not really in any rush to get a Chelsea player into my team. I can't afford Palmer anyway, and the games that Chelsea have coming up are pretty tricky, so I'm not in a massive rush. But a -1 from Dunk, I'm glad I didn't start him. And then 0 points from Greaves. He got himself a booking. He conceded 2 goals. There's not really much to talk on. I wasn't going to start him against Villa anyway, so there was no need for him to really be there as as I've mentioned previously, Greaves is there as that 4 million bench filler, so I have budget elsewhere in the team. Looking at the midfield, and the midfield actually performed pretty well, if I'm being honest. Eze with a 2-pointer again. I don't really think that's much of a surprise. I don't think anybody really expected him to do much. Liverpool next week, he may be a transfer out that I have to look at, but that there is another player in the midfield that I desperately need to take out this week just because of his minutes, and I'm going to touch on him next, which is Minte. He got benched again, came on off the bench in about the 70th, 75th minute, and didn't really look good when he came off the bench. He started the season really well. He was getting assists in... Did he get assists in the first 2 games? But then after that, he's fallen off. Whether the João Pedro injury is affecting his minutes, because when he was playing, João Pedro was up front, and they were playing off each other really well, so maybe that's affecting it, I'm not sure. But with us not knowing how long João Pedro is going to be out for, and with Minte being such a minutes risk now, I do need to take him out this week, so I'm not quite sure who I'm going to take him out for, and I will touch on that when I get to what the team is looking like for next week, but Minte with a 1-pointer, definitely a transfer out this week. Looking at Rodgers next, 7-pointer, he got that goal, which was a really well-taken goal. And as I mentioned, with Rodgers being 5 million, yes, you don't have to start him every week, but if Rodgers was 6 million or 6.5 million, I think then we start to look at him as an essential option and he can start every week. So I'm not being put off by his price tag. The fixtures that Villa have coming up are still pretty decent. They have Man United at home next week. We saw what United did against Spurs this week, so I can see Rodgers getting an attacking return yet again, so I'm more than happy to be keeping Rodgers for the long term, especially with him being 5 million. He's a brilliant budget enabler for the rest of the team, so no complaints about having Rodgers still, and that's back-to-back returns now, so I can just see him getting better as the weeks go on. Looking at Mbeumo next, he got a goal in the first minute, which I think that's his 3rd goal in 1 minute, or it's Brentford's 3rd goal in the first minute of back-to-back-to-back games. And Mbeumo getting that goal, that is a successful transfer in. I'm glad that I brought him in. But I do think he could have done more in that game. It does look like Brentford are missing Visser. However, the players that they have been performing well. Fabio Carvalho, for example, he's coming in at 4.8 million now. And he got the assist for Mbeumo's goal, and he played majority of minutes, so he could be a shout for another differential to maybe bring into teams. So I am going to be looking at maybe bringing him in this week for Minte. Frees up some funds elsewhere as well, so he is one to keep an eye on. But Mbeumo with that first minute goal, Mbeumo was just that player this season who, especially with Tony leaving, I think Mbeumo is going to be essential with the games that Brentford have coming up. And then Mo Salah last. He got that goal. Yes, it was a lucky goal because it was a penalty, but that's why we have Salah. He's that penalty taker for Liverpool, so he got that penalty goal. I messed up with captaincy again. The first week that I captained Haaland and Haaland blanks. If I'd have stuck with Salah captain, yes, it would have still been a red arrow, but it wouldn't have been as bad of a red arrow as it would have been, as it already is. So yes, it was a bad red arrow as it is, but if I'd have captained Salah, it would have been a lot different. It would have only been a red arrow of maybe 200k, 300k instead of 1.1 million. So looking back on it, I probably should have captained Salah, especially with them being against Wolves and Man City being against Newcastle. But I did honestly think Man City would do so much better than they did against Newcastle, and I'm going to get onto that now. So looking at Haaland, he got the 2 points, which isn't what you want from your premium striker. And yes, Newcastle is probably one of the tougher games they had in the opening few, other than that Arsenal game, but he got a goal in the Arsenal game, and when I was looking at it, I thought, do you know what? Newcastle's defence hasn't been great this season. Maybe Haaland can get a return in that game. I was mistaken. Newcastle looked really good, to be fair, and they probably could have gone on to win the game. They got a penalty in the 60th, 65th minute, which made it 1-1. And in my opinion, Ederson should have been sent off for that challenge on Gordon. Gordon was through on goal, 1-on-1 with the keeper, and Ederson wiped him out. If that is a defender doing it, it's a red card because he's through on goal. So why is Ederson not sent off for it? That's the only thing that I'm thinking there. If somebody knows why he wasn't sent off, please let me know in the comments. But if Ederson had been sent off, that could have changed the game completely. So I do think Newcastle, yes, they deserved the point. Maybe could have got 3 points, but I was very disappointed with Haaland. Thankfully, Haaland's next few fixtures are really nice, especially with Southampton in game week 9, where it is a triple captaincy option. So Haaland's not going anywhere in my team at the minute. And then Calvert-Lewin to finish with a one-pointer. He got himself a yellow card. Didn't really look in the game too much, but his minutes are still there. He's still getting 80, 90 minutes per game. So again, I'm not in any rush to take him out, especially with Everton's fixtures looking pretty decent. Yes, they have Newcastle this week, but after that I know they have Ipswich coming up and Leicester coming up. So some really nice fixtures coming up in the next few game weeks that Calvert-Lewin can play in. So that's the team for game week 6, 38 points all out. Let me know in the comments how you got on in game week 6, and now let's look ahead to game week 7 to see how the team is lining up. So now looking at the team for game week 7, and on paper, I would say the starting 11 is relatively strong, bar maybe 1 or 2 players. So starting off in net, David Raya against Southampton at home. So more than happy to stick with Raya. I did bring Raya in for the long term. Yes, he was an injury scare this week. Thankfully, he played. Yes, it was only a one-pointer. But against Southampton, I can see him getting, hopefully, a clean sheet. Bournemouth next week as well, that could be a clean sheet as well. So I'm more than happy to stick with Raya. Moving down to the defence, Cons are at home to Manchester United. A lot of people would say Villa's defence hasn't looked strong. However, we saw Manchester United against Tottenham losing 3-0 at home. And I do feel like without Bruno Fernandes especially, United could struggle against Villa and it could be a 1-2, maybe 3-0 win for Villa. So again, I think I'm more than happy to stick with Konza this week on the off chance he gets a clean sheet against Man United. I don't want to be using a defensive transfer this week. That's the only problem. And the other defenders I have is Greaves against West Ham and Dunk against Tottenham, who they're not great fixtures, whereas Konza against Man United is a better fixture than those other two. So I'm more than happy to stick with Konza in the starting 11. If he gets a clean sheet, that's perfect. If he doesn't, at least it should hopefully be a 2-pointer, but the rest in my defence can deliver. Gabriel next, again at home against Southampton, the same as Raya. I think Gabriel can get a clean sheet in that game and could even get an attacking return. Arsenal's corners are probably the best in the league in my opinion, and Gabriel has been getting quite a few goals from the corners and is looking really strong from them. So more than happy to stick with Gabriel this week. And then Trent away to Crystal Palace. It is the 12:30 game, which is the only downside because we have seen Liverpool in the past in those 12:30 games struggle. But with how Palace have looked this season, they've not looked great at all. They've not won a game yet. They've had 3 draws, 3 losses. I can't see them beating Liverpool. Can I see them getting a goal? Yes, and I can see it being 2-1, maybe 3-1 Liverpool, but I do think Liverpool will get the win. And if Liverpool don't get the clean sheet, I can see Trent getting an attacking return. In every game so far, we've seen the positions that he's taking up, and he's playing as he's such an attacking threat. And it's kind of disappointing that he's only had 1 attacking return so far this season. And I do think more are to come. And I think in this Palace game, he can definitely get an attacking return with how Palace have been defensively. So no rush to take Trent out there. Moving down to the midfield next. This is where I need to make a transfer. And it's either Eze out or Minte out. So I only have 1 free transfer. So if I feel like I need to take both out, it will have to be a points hit. But I look at Eze at home against Liverpool, and Eze's underlying data is still good. He's just not getting the FPL returns. So can I take a risk of keeping Eze for 1 or 2 more game weeks with them having Liverpool at home this week and then Nottingham Forest the week after? There is part of me wants to keep Eze for 2 more weeks, and I will explain why in a second. But at the same time, I do want to take him out now. If I am to keep Eze this week, it will be Minte out. One of them two needs to go, Eze or Minte. Hypothetically, I take Minte out this week for, let's say, Carvalho. Yeah, we'll say Carvalho because he's the cheaper option that I'm looking at. We do Minte for Carvalho because that's a home game against Wolves and his minutes have been good. we keep Eze for this week against Liverpool and next week, or the week after, because it is the international break next week, but for game week 8 as well against Nottingham Forest. That then gives me 2 free transfers in game week 9 for me to do Eze down to somebody like a Smith Rowe, a Semenyo, a McNeil, somebody like that, and João Pedro then up to a Solanke, who that week has, I want to say Aston Villa, but the week after has Ipswich. So a Spurs asset in this team would be good. I could easily do that this week and take a -4 and bring in James Maddison for Eze. But do I really want Maddison in for a -4 when he might not get the returns? Not really. So I'm probably going to stick with Eze for 2 more game weeks and hope that he gets a return in one of them. And then from game week 9, look at taking him out for a 5.56 million player to then bring Solanke in up front. So that is the current plan that I am thinking. But I want your thoughts in the comments about that, or whether you think I should just take a -4 this week, take the hit and take Eze out. Looking at Rodgers next, at home to Man United, United's defence hasn't been great the last couple of weeks, so I can see Rodgers again getting some attacking returns in this game, so I'm more than happy to stick with him. And Burma at home to Wolves, brilliant fixture. Wolves defensively haven't looked great this season. The fixtures are picking up now for Wolves, don't get me wrong, but I do think Brentford will be a little bit too much for them, especially at home. And I think Burma will be able to get another return, so more than happy to stick with Burma for the long term. Minte next, at home to Spurs. As I've mentioned, Minte or Eze need to go this week, and with Minte's minutes, I can't take the risk with Minte, so Minte will be the one that I'm definitely getting rid of this week. And I'm between 3 players to bring in. Either Semenyo, who's away to Leicester, but then after that his fixtures drop off, so I'm not really 100% thrilled with him. McNeil, but again, at home to Newcastle, and then do I really want to double up on Everton players? Not really. And then the other player that I'm looking at is Fabio Carvalho. So with Carvalho coming in at 4.8 at the minute, his minutes have been really good over the last 2, especially since Vista's been injured. And I do think that Carvalho has that attacking threat that other people aren't really seeing. He got an assist in game week 6 and played 84 minutes, I'm pretty sure. He played 86 in game week 5, 84 in game week 6. Can we see him getting 90 in game week 7? Maybe. So I think I'd be willing to take a punt on bringing in Carvalho, especially with how his minutes have been recently, and with us not knowing how long Vista is going to be out for. If he's out long term, Carvalho could be a really good option as another budget enabler to then upgrade players elsewhere, so he is one that I am keeping an eye on. And then Salah against Crystal Palace. As I've mentioned with Trent, it's against Palace. Yes, it's away in the 12:30 game, but I can see Salah getting returns in that game, so there's no rush for me to take him out. Moving down to the attack, I've got Haaland as captain at home to Fulham. Fulham defensively haven't looked the best. However, the last couple of games, they've managed to keep a clean sheet. So, could I see another clean sheet from Fulham? Yes. But I can't see it, if I'm being realistic. Against Man City, there's no way Fulham are keeping a clean sheet, especially with it being at the Etihad. I can see Haaland getting 2 goals in that game, so that's why I'm more than happy to captain Haaland this game week. And then Calvert-Lewin against Newcastle. I do expect Newcastle to win this game against Everton, but I don't expect a clean sheet. I do expect Everton to get a goal, or maybe 2. Hopefully Calvert-Lewin can get that goal. As I mentioned, I don't want to double up on Everton, so I don't want to be bringing in McNeil, who did get those 2 goals at the weekend for Everton. So hopefully Calvert-Lewin can get an attack and return. So that is the starting 11. There's not really much to talk on the bench, as the 2 defenders won't start for me anyway, and João Pedro is injured. So that's the starting 11 as it stands, and the main transfers that I need to do are Minte out and Eze out. Minte out 100%, maybe Eze for a -4, but I'm not entirely sure about that. So there we have it, guys. Those were the points that I scored in game week 6, and a little bit of a look ahead to game week 7 to see how the team is lining up. So as always, I want to know in the comments, how did you get on in game week 6? Was it a big green arrow for you, or was it a red arrow like it was for myself? And what transfers are you looking at making ahead of Game Week 7, with another international break coming up in between Game Week 7 and Game Week 8? As always, if you did enjoy today's video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are new. And until next time, thank you for watching.